Today, I wanted to talk a little bit about silence. You're not going to be surprised when I tell you that as a child, I was not one of these kids that was seen and not heard. I've always been very outspoken from a very early age. And for good or bad, it has gotten me in trouble, but it has always helped me be more confident in myself, but eventually also learn from the things that when you speak it out loud, you get to hear from others different perspectives that perhaps we weren't aware of. Again, most of us have heard that silence is golden, that the strong silent type is a great type, and that silence is a true friend who never betrays, right? That's what Confucius said to us. However, at times when we stay silent, when we don't say a word, we tend to be saying more than we really wanted to say, honestly. By choosing silence over dialogue, you're creating barriers between yourself and others. People thrive on meaningful conversations, and ultimately, it's all about the shared experiences. And when you remain silent, it becomes challenging for people to understand your thoughts, your feelings, your perspectives. The silent treatment of a spouse is very common. And I know that in my first marriage, I used to do that a lot. I used to not be happy, or we used to argue. And it was easy to become that hurt person that then would be giving the other person the silent treatment. And now that I've remarried and I'm in a different relationship, and I feel that, I've really have worked on my emotional intelligence and my positive intelligence as well, I realize that keeping silent in a relationship is really something that is going to erode the relationship. For you see, when we stay silent, a lot of times silence means loneliness, isolation, awkwardness. It can be used again as a sign of emotional withdrawal or disapproval or even punishment. In our language, words of silence are usually words that have a negative connotation or lead to thinking that there's a conspiracy. That's how our mind works, right? Our mind is always going to go to the worst case scenario. We have a negativity bias. So, again, when we don't know for sure, we create our own stories in our brain. And the reality is that, yes, there are some benefits and psychological benefits to silence. And it can help us create creativity, to focus more, to be more self in control, more self awareness, to really gain a deeper spirituality and perspective on things. But that is silence for ourselves. But when we are silent many times in relationships, especially when we disagree with somebody, then it really creates the breeding ground for things to go in different directions, for people to really create a larger chasm between each other. Silence from people that we love and trust is really detrimental. And I will tell you, last week, I got up on Tuesday, went to vote. And again, this is October 12th that I'm recording this, and this may be out there for prosperity. Posterity. Oh, I didn't even know how to say it. You know what I mean. But I woke up and I went to vote, and I came back and went about my business. And I sent an email, or I scheduled an email for my audience members, for my community. And the email, without me thinking again about it, went out on Wednesday morning. Now, I'm not going to lie. The results of the current election in the States were not what I was expecting. And for me, because I'd been through this before in 2016, I decided to really take some time to be with my own thoughts and to process and to really be able to dissect, what was going on through my mind. However, the email I had written and scheduled to be sent out on Wednesday still went out. And the email was saying, "Hey, I'm feeling optimistic no matter where you are. But by the way, I also, by the way, here's my offer. Join my mastermind." And the first thing in the morning around 6:30 a.m., which I don't check email that early, honestly. However, I did check it because someone called me to say I needed to check my email. And when I went in, I saw an email that said, "Your email is tone deaf. I am scared. This does not resonate with me because people like me are scared of what can happen." And I totally understood how that person was feeling. I totally understood that what was going on in the world and how things had shifted from feeling hope on Tuesday to all of a sudden Wednesday feeling lost. I saw that and I knew that I could not stay silent. So I went ahead and I typed another email. And in my email, I titled the email correction. And mainly, I titled it correction because, well, I wanted people to know what my thoughts on the perspective and what was going on in the world was. I also knew that I could not allow people to assume anything about me. The reality is that my brand, the person that I am, are not independent of each other. As a business owner, I am always going to bring myself to the table. I am always going to be the person that speaks up, that has an opinion, that is going to hopefully has something important to say rather than staying silent. And yes, I've learned definitely to use silence and to use it in a way that is helpful and supportive to others and myself. In this particular moment, I couldn't stay silent because to me, it was disingenuous for people to think that I felt one way when I was really feeling another. And I wanted people to really be able to receive this and see me as a person, see me for my convictions and my beliefs. My dad always talked about how we had to stand in our convictions, we had to stand in our beliefs. For that reason, I've never been able to stay silent, even though sometimes it has gotten me into trouble. And although I don't believe that my email got me into trouble, it really got me thinking because I had a conversation with somebody who has a difference of opinion from mine and from the beliefs that I had. And this person didn't want to express to me their difference of opinion, but they did want to express that they felt it was a terrible thing that I was mixing politics and business. All of my business is rooted in my convictions and my values, and they may be different from people's values and opinions and people that I love and people that I serve. However, I don't believe that there is a separation. We speak with our actions. We speak with the things that we do. And every single time I show up as a coach, as a speaker, as a mentor, I am showing up with the convictions and the beliefs that I have. And I get paid for being who I am. I get paid for speaking to people the way I do, supporting individuals in the way that I support them. And I knew when I send my email, as I do right now, that at times what I believe is not going to resonate with others. And although I was really afraid to send that email that kind of made a correction for others, I did it. I sent it because I needed to. I couldn't stay silent. And number two, I knew that it would cost people unsubscribing or unfollowing me, or even yet deciding to not work for me or with me, rather. And that's okay. I know that I'm not everybody's cup of tea. I know that at times, I choose not to support others with my business if I believe they are contributing to something that I don't believe in. However, the one thing that really struck me is that this person wasn't going to communicate or have a discussion with me about what they believed or why they voted differently. They were just going to tell me how I was wrong for mixing business and my beliefs. And you know what? I am not here to tell you that you should do the same as I am, that the way I do my business and the way I bring my values into my business is what you should do. But what I am here to say is that silence really can create such a terrible condition for many of us. It can create a terrible condition for the people who are not hearing what we need to hear. And guess what? It doesn't mean that we need to agree on everything. I believe that conversations that are with people of two different perspectives are courageous conversations, but these conversations need to be had. Otherwise, we are going to continue to create our own stories. There's a lot of people who are feeling isolated and have hidden pain and unaddressed trauma, and they're really struggling silently. And no one has said, I am sorry you're feeling this way. I know you may not understand why I voted this way or why I believe this, but it's important to come to the table and share why we believe that, why we think this, because then it creates an honesty that we can embrace among each other. Conversations that make us uncomfortable are always going to take courage. And I sometimes don't show up to these conversations right away. Take, for instance, this podcast. I have been really in my mind going over as to what I believe would be the right thing to say or not say and stay silent. And of course, I've chosen to speak. I've chosen to speak for myself, and I've chosen to speak for the hundreds of people, by the way, that have replied to my email. The funny thing is that in the email where I stated what I believe, what I was feeling, the only replies I received were people who felt like me, who felt disenfranchised, who felt alone, who felt unseen, who felt afraid, who felt confused, who felt let down. And I know that from the words that they shared with me and from not being silent and responding to me, I know that they felt heard. I know that they felt understood and seen, and they felt a little bit of hope that we are together, that we have a community. Now, I think that at times when we choose to not reply because it may create conflict, it may escalate an argument, it may not be productive. At times, we're allowing other people to see our silence as a lack of support, as a lack of compassion. And I know that I have tons of people that listen that have different views, that have a lack of compassion, that don't have a lack of compassion, rather, that are incredible, empathetic people, that are people that are kind. However, whatever their beliefs are, and when they made a choice, they decided to make a choice based on what they believe. And I could never, right, say, don't believe in that. All I can say is, this is what I think, and this is what I have seen, and this is what my experiences are. And a courageous conversation between two people with different views comes to the table and says, I don't see that. This is what I see. I want to tell you, I met my husband Dan over 30 years ago. And when we met, I had just moved back to Miami, and it was right after the Bill Clinton election. I had worked the campaign, and I was on fire, new Democrat, but of course, I was young, naive, also very outspoken and rude. Oh my God, I felt like I had it together, that my opinion was the best opinion and nobody else knew. And I remember calling Dan uninformed and unintelligent, I think. I don't know. He can tell you better. But I use those words because I felt superior to him. I felt that, who are you? You don't even know what I think. And although I don't believe that people are misinformed, or maybe, I don't know. I mean, maybe we can talk about that, and that's something that we can have. Over the course of 30 years that Dan and I have a relationship, first as friends, we learn to speak about our differences, and we learn to see the world from each other's point of view. I learned that not everything was black and white, that not everything was something that was better or greater or worse than mine. I learned to see the world from his eye and his perspective. And it also helped me about being compassionate, understanding, and open. Now, Dan and I are married, and in our marriage, we don't always see eye to eye. We don't always, want to move in the same direction. But we do these courageous conversations and have radical candor with each other. I am always going to tell him what I think, and in the same way, he is always going to tell me what he thinks. Why? Because then we know where each other are. And that way we can practice compassion. That way we can practice curiosity. Why is that person there? Why is he thinking that? And then it helps us be able to move forward and create a lesser divide between us. There's joy in feeling seen and understood. And a lot of times, again, many decent people that we love, feel differently and voted differently. And I want to go ahead and move forward and let everybody know that no matter what you believe politically, I am always open to having a conversation, not to make you believe what I believe, not to make you change your mind, but to really be able to be a way for me to understand better, to be more aware, to go forward and build a relationship with you that is based on truth and honesty. Because I would rather know exactly what you're thinking and feeling as opposed to assuming I know how you feel and you think. One of my favorite books is The Four Agreements. And I've talked about this before, and I think that this really applies to today's conversation. Wherever you may be in this world, wherever you might be thinking and feeling, wherever you might be processing what is going on, I want to remind you that these four agreements, at least for me, have made an incredible impact in my life. Be impeccable with your word. Don't take things personally. Don't make assumptions, and always do your best. If we are impeccable with our word, we are going to speak with integrity. We're only going to say what we mean. And the reality is that a lot of times we don't even know how to say it. We don't even know how to speak to others or about others without gossiping, without trying to use our words to be powerful over somebody else. So, the more that we practice having impeccability with our words, the better we will become at it. And guess what? We are going to then offer love, and we're going to learn how to not cause fear or pain to one another because of our words. When it comes to not taking anything personally, I think that, in these times, people want to say it's them against us. And there is a level of that. We are going to fall in different spectrums. But a lot of times, if you believe one thing and vote it that direction, and you explain to me why, I'm not going to take it personally. But when I don't understand you, it's going to be easy for my mind, my reptilian brain to jump to the false beliefs or to the worst case scenario. Now, in some cases, maybe that is how you feel. Maybe you don't like certain lifestyles. Maybe you don't believe that we should talk about certain things in books that are in schools. Maybe you don't think that, um, we have the right to love who we love. But nothing others do is because of what they say. We can't take it personally until they actually say, "Hey, Julie, I really hate you." Then maybe I can take it personally. But the reality is that nobody has the power to hurt us with their words. It is what we think about what they're saying that makes us hurt, and that makes us act. And when people stay silent, when people choose not to speak, don't make assumptions. Don't make assumptions that you know where they're coming from. Don't make assumptions that you understand, because the reality is we don't. Find the quiet courage to ask questions, to express what you want and communicate, as opposed to saying, hey, I know that you did this and this must be who you are. No, we can't make that assumption. And last but not least, the last lesson of the 4 agreements is always do your best. And I know that I'm going to show up imperfectly. I know that there's going to be a lot of times in which I'm going to fall, and there's going to be a lot of times in which I am not going to show up as my best. But please know that if I don't stay silent on things, it's because I believe that it's worth a conversation. I believe that our relationships and our world are incredible opportunities for us to fight the loneliness, to create communities, to overcome negative connotations. And again, silence at times will contribute to that. Silence is golden, perhaps in a movie theater, but not in our relationships when it means that the other person is hurt, that the other person feels alone. So I want to challenge you today that perhaps you're not ready to have a full-fledged discussion, but perhaps you're not going to get into a whole conversation about political ideology or whatever else, but perhaps you're going to use your words to tell someone that you see them. Perhaps you will be the person that becomes the believing mirror in someone who may think a completely different than you, believe something different than you, but by your words of love, empathy, and curiosity will help them process a lot of what they may be going through. So again, my friends, I'd love for you to tell me what you thought of this episode. I hope that if this was helpful, you will share this with somebody else. I am incredibly grateful for this platform, and I want to tell you that this platform will continue to be always fueled by my beliefs, my passions, and the things that I know that we need to talk about in order to continue in our journey to go confidently in the direction of our dreams. So thank you for tuning in.
Hi, everybody. I know that sometimes we get very lonely in this entrepreneur journey, and I want to invite you to join us into our limited time only Purposeful You Mastermind. For many of us entrepreneurs, we believe that we can do it all, but the reality is that doing it alone only creates a lot of overwhelm. So join us at the Purposeful You Mastermind. You can find out more information by going to bit.ly/Julie's Mastermind. This is going to be the place where you are able to then unlock your full potential and achieve long-term success for your business. Push you behind your current limits, expand your connections, discover new ideas, and implement them with confidence. You're going to get the support in all aspects and transforming you to the 6-figure business you've been looking for. Pause and get off the hamster wheel if you've been spinning around. This is a time where you can get that support from like-minded entrepreneurs that are here to join you in your journey. Together, we can challenge the assumptions and land the speaking engagements and opportunities we want to grow our business and make an impact in the lives of people. See you then. Remember, you can find the mastermind at bit.ly, Julie's Mastermind.